It was about 3 years ago now, and Zazu and I were living in New York, but we were back home in Los Angeles for a few days. That part was fairly normal. We're both Angelinos. We would come back every few months to see friends and family for holidays and simchas, and during my breaks from school. But this trip was different, and we felt it, because the stakes were high. We were back in Los Angeles because I was interviewing to work at Nefesh. And as Shabbat drew nearer, I wasn't overly concerned about the teaching I was going to offer. I was feeling fairly prepared around the interview itself. I already knew Rabbi Susan. I trusted the other folks would be warm and easy to talk to. But for services on Friday night, the website was clear. Please bring a dessert to our potluck oneg. I had to nail this. I had to find the unicorn dessert that says, I understand the vibe of this community. I respect its norms around kashrut. I can demonstrate a certain expertise around Jewish food culture, and all of this will come off as very easy and matter of fact. So I went to Schwartz's Bakery on Pico. I got a chocolate babka. Easy. No stress. So I went back to where I was staying to get dressed for Shabbat, and I started to head over. Zazu was spending the day at her sister's, so I left with enough time, accounting for Los Angeles Friday traffic, to grab her and get to Nefesh early. So I'm in the car for about 30 minutes when I reach over to double check that the babka is parv. It's not in the passenger seat. No worries. So I start to fumble for it in the back seat. I'm not feeling it. Panic begins to set in, and I wish this was a bit. I'm a rabbinic candidate, and I'm about to show up empty-handed to the dessert potluck of the shul that I'm actively hoping will bring me on. My heart sinks. There isn't time to head back without missing most of services. So I call Zazu to tell her I'm 15 minutes away, and that we might as well just agree now that this will be the last time we're ever at Nefesh. I have forgotten the babka. I'm so sorry. So instead of joining in whatever absolutely over-the-top trauma response I'm having, she goes straight into action. It's all good. I'm with my sister. We'll make cookies. Don't worry. I hang up. I'm still worried. What took place over the next 15 minutes was an act of loving and supreme creativity. They begin to make cookies and realize that the recipe they've chosen requires several ingredients they don't have. The dough is supposed to spend an hour in the refrigerator, so they decide it will spend 5 minutes in the freezer. Lucy is out of flour, but they find some gluten-free flour deep in her pantry. But by the time I pick Zazu up, she walks out, cookies in hand. Not the chocolate chip cookies they had set out to make, but gluten-free almond cookies. That looked great. And I didn't know the details of how they came out until later that night, but I still remember whether folks were being honest or just polite, that several of our Nefesh kin complimented the cookies, and a few weeks later, I was hired as the associate rabbi here at Nefesh. I can still now, even just standing here telling you this story, recall, and it must be very clear, viscerally experience the feeling of overwhelm and desperation. Because for a brief moment there, I felt that all hope was lost. I didn't see the path forward that didn't result in more disappointment and even potential heartbreak. And once the dust settled, I was grateful for the reminder that sometimes in these moments of feeling lost and uncertain, it is simply the will to be creative and take that next step into the unknown that brings us back, that gives us hope, that gets us to the place we so desperately want to be. All of this from some forgotten babka. So over the years, I've thought about this story, and not only because of my continued gratitude for my wife's groundedness and resourcefulness, but also because this story is so Jewish. And I don't mean because it involves a Schwartz's dessert and a diagnosable amount of intergenerational anxiety about showing up empty-handed to a Shabbat potluck. It's incredibly Jewish because this is what we as a people have always done. In moments of despair, we have gotten relentlessly creative. And right now, we are in one of those moments. What we share as a people as we enter this new year are overwhelming feelings of heartbreak and of grief and of helplessness. I was raised with an incredibly coursing and profound sense of ahavat Yisrael, a love of Israel, of Am Yisrael, the Jewish people who wrestle with God, of Eretz Yisrael, a land that held and holds so much of our religious and spiritual tradition, and with a vision of Medinat Yisrael, a state of Israel that's central goal was to be a light among the nations, a beacon of refuge, offering a deep sense of hope. And I am heartbroken. I am heartbroken that in the name of Jewish safety and security, tens of thousands of Palestinian children, siblings, parents, and loved ones have been killed. The majority of Gazans have been displaced. Hospitals, schools, and homes have been reduced to rubble. There is little access to clean water, food, medical care, or shelter. And this destruction is not incidental. It is the result of military objectives that have prioritized political gain over civilian lives. And all the while, the families of the Hostages and Missing Families Forum continue to beg and plead and march in the streets that Netanyahu and the Israeli government accept a deal that will bring home their loved ones after 716 days. Their cries continue to be ignored, while all who live in the land continue to be stuck in a cycle of violence that dehumanizes everyone it touches. And I am also heartbroken that Am Yisrael, my people, our people, people who wrestle, does not feel like it's still engaged in this struggle. Because wrestling means engagement. It means trust. It means underneath the disagreement, there is an enduring love and faith that we are in this together. And right now, I don't see much of that kind of wrestling. I am in mourning over the loss of our people, feeling like we have maintained our peoplehood, that we are even still one people. But I will say it again and again and again. We have been here before, and we have made it through. We know the way through. This cannot, this is not, this will not be the end of the road. This will not be the end of our story. This will not be the end of our peoplehood. We read in the Talmud a story of four of our greatest sages, Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yehoshua, and Rabbi Akiva. The second temple has been destroyed, and the four of them are in Jerusalem, standing together near the ruins of their most cherished holy site. And it's at this juncture that they see a fox running across the wreckage of where the Holy of Holies once stood. Their grief is overwhelming. They are crying, they are tearing their garments the way one does upon hearing of the loss of a loved one. Well, at least three of them are, because Rabbi Akiva begins to laugh. And in shock, they ask him, "How could you be laughing?" Rabbi Akiva responds, "Why do you weep? How can we not weep when we see the curse from the book of Lamentations enacted right before our eyes? Rabbi Akiva answered, "This is precisely why I am laughing. Before these terrible prophecies came to be, we were afraid to believe the visions of our prophets. But since we see the prophecy of Uriah, one of devastation and destruction, coming to pass, how can we possibly doubt the prophecy of Zechariah, that we shall return, that we shall again be consoled?" And his friends were comforted. My friends, I don't take comfort in this story because of my deep faith in the visions of our prophets. I take comfort because of what actually came next. This moment of destruction or devastation or disaster is what our tradition in Hebrew calls churban. And this moment of churban was followed by something revolutionary and inspirational. Our people, instead of deciding that with no temple all hope was lost, began to innovate. And in place of animal sacrifice, we began to offer prayer as worship. And instead of centralized worship, our people established synagogues across the diaspora. And instead of being a tradition based in our biblical law, we became a rabbinic tradition, one defined by continued discernment, interpretation, and innovation. And in fact, this was not the only moment of churban where our people were faced with devastation and met the moment with acts of courage and faith. Of course, we have the story of my babka, but there were others too, peppered throughout our history. After the destruction of the first temple, we see the creation of the Tanakh. After the destruction of the second temple, our rabbis had the wisdom to create the Talmud. The Zohar, created in the aftermath of the Conquista in Spain, and Hasidism, born after the Chmielnicki massacres. My teacher, Rabbi Ed Feinstein, explains that it's at these moments of discontinuity that our people saw that what got us here to this point would not get us there, to where we wanted to be. Something new was necessary, and this has always been the remarkable genius of our people. The great innovations of our tradition were not authored in moments of continuity or ease, but in moments of supreme discontinuity. So 7 weeks ago, we acknowledged the destruction of both temples on Tisha B'Av. And as we sit here again tonight, we are again experiencing one of these profound moments of churban, of wreckage, of heartache, of existential uncertainty. What got us here is not going to get us there. I stand before you tonight with an incredibly heavy heart, but also with a profound sense and hopeful recognition that the crisis before us is not only familiar, not only a part of who we have always been, but also a moment that we are uniquely equipped to navigate. If only we can again cultivate the necessary courage, creativity, and collective action that will be integral for us to make it through. On Rosh Hashanah, we believe that we're celebrating not only the birthday of the world, but specifically the 6th day of creation, the day that humankind was brought into being. And we read in Breshit of the first 5 days of creation, and in the midst of those verses, we read 5 times, Vayar Elohim ki tov, and God saw that it was good. And then we arrive at the 6th day, and there is a glaring and even jarring omission. Humankind is created, but God does not see that we are good. Rabbi Shai Held points out the theological richness of not being described as good. We as human beings have work to do, quite literally by design. The word good isn't missing because we are flawed. It is missing because we are unfinished. Our job on this earth is to create and play our part in doing the holy work of making ourselves and this place a bit better. And I want to acknowledge that creating is hard when we're not on the same page about what it is that we're trying to create. And I know this because I've spoken to many of you one-on-one, that we each have our own idea as to what innovation needs to look like right now, what needs to come next. And many of us know that it is urgent, because as we sit here, lives are being lost and there is no time to waste. Because we are in a moment of profound moral crisis. We are in this moment of churban because people are dying, because livelihoods are being destroyed, because political gain has been made more important than the divinity in all human beings, in those that are most vulnerable. And this is where we are failing right now. Because instead of urgency igniting our most collaborative and creative selves to address this moment of churban, our people have been using that urgency against one another. So many of us in the last year have sat in this existential, hopeless place and then reacted with, if you don't want to build exactly how I want to build, then we have to abandon this project altogether. But let's look at where that has gotten us. Jewish professionals are losing their jobs for speaking out about this war, even if carefully, even from a place of Torah values. The Reconstructionist movement is fracturing over a split in political ideology around Israel. Jewish institutions' funding has become contingent upon an even narrower sense of ideological alignment, all while we are witnessing an endless cycle of violence, starvation, war, and devastation. And it doesn't have to be this way. There has always been, and there is currently, a path forward. And as human beings, we know that we must do our part to do this holy work of creation and recreation. But as a Jewish people, it is incumbent upon us to take moments of destruction and mine them for the potential of reinvention and reinvigoration. Because this moment of churban is here, and we can't afford to allow ourselves to sink deeper into its devastation. This isn't about hedging. It's not about giving up on our values for the sake of superficially staying in relationship with one another. It's about courage. It's about imagination. It's about elasticity. If we all want to stay safe in the world, to know that our loved ones are safe, how can we take the baton from our ancient rabbis and say something new must come from this? Something that repairs the profound devastation that has been perpetuated in our name. And right now, we are here in the same room. And not only tonight, but throughout the year. We don't need to let this moment of heartbreak push us further apart. We can view it as the invitation to get closer, to rebuild together. But that is going to require discomfort, struggle, and wrestling, and even pain. It requires stretching ourselves. It requires firmness and boundary setting and very clear demands, coupled with curiosity of and openness to the other. I'm reminded of a teaching I learned earlier this year in a book about grief by Frank Ostaseski called The 5 Invitations. And he shares the wisdom of a man who has worked for a long time putting up telephone poles. The man shares that when people are new to the job, there's a moment right after affixing your first pole where there is uncertainty. What if the pole falls down? And your natural instinct is to run as far away as possible. Well, the veteran shares that actually the safest place to be in that moment, the safest next step is to run directly at the pole, right at its base. That's where you're safest in the event that the pole falls down, in the event of destruction. As we enter into 5786, in this profound moment of churban, this is my blessing for all of us. Please, God, May we have the strength to not continue to run away from one another, but instead to run right at one another with all of our hearts and with all of our souls and with all of our might, so that from this void may come something new, something brave, something we create together. Vayar Elohim et kol asher asa, v'hine tov me'od. And God looked out and saw all that the divine had created, and it was very good. May we wrestle with one another. May we channel the divine in our will to create something new. And please, God, may it be very, very good. Shana Tova.
Door